Hey y'all. Today we are going to solve quadratic equations by the quadratic formula. So here's the quadratic formula. It works for any quadratic equation. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Alright, and so the only thing is you have to have your equation in the form of the standard form, x squared plus bx plus c, to identify your a, your b, and your c values. So I'm going to show you examples. This works for any quadratic equation for finding the zeros. So we're looking for the zeros, the solutions, the x-intercepts, whatever you want to call it, we're looking for the solution. Alright. So example 1. Y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. So you see I've identified my a is 1, my b is 2, and my c is negative 8. And here's my formula, the quadratic formula. So all I've done is I've put my data values in. My negative b is negative 2. B squared is 2 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And then I have simplified, and 2 squared is 4. 4 times 1 times negative 8 is negative 32. And then 2 times 1 is 2. And then, if you see, I have two negatives right here, so I knew that was going to be plus, so 4 plus 32, and that gave me 36. And from now, the last step is I take it and I do as much simplifying as I can. So the square root of 36 is 6. So I'm going to come over here, and I get negative 2 plus or minus 6 over 2. And those are my two solutions, plus 6 or minus 6. So I'm going to show you both. Negative 2 plus 6 would be 4 over 2, which is 2. Negative 2 minus 6 would be negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. So here are my two solutions, 2 and negative 4. And if I were to factor this out, like if I wanted to solve by factoring, it would have been x plus 4 and x minus 2, which would have given me negative 4 and 2. So the same answers, I'm just showing you how to use the quadratic formula. Alright, example 2. My equation is in standard form, so I see my a is 1, my b is 3, and my c is 2. Here's my formula, so I can always look back at it, and I've input my values. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Now I'm going to take the values, negative 3 plus or minus. So this is 9 minus 4 times 1 times 2 is 8. Alright, 9 minus 8 is 1. All over 2 times 1 is 2. I don't really need all that. So then I'm going to find my values. Negative 3, square root of 1 is 1. So negative 3 plus or minus 1 over 2. Alright, if you have questions, write them down. We're going to go over this again in class. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 over 2. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4 over 2. So my solutions are negative 1 or negative 2. If you wanted to check by factoring, you could factor that equation and you would get x plus 1, x plus 2, and then your solutions again would be negative 1 and negative 2. Alright, examples 3 and 4. Alright, over here, my a is 2, my b is negative 3, my c is 1/2. So I'm going to show you how to do a fraction. In my equation, x equals negative b, so a negative 3 would be a 3. So a negative b would mean take a negative and turn it into a positive. B squared, which negative 3 squared would be 9, minus 4 times 2 times c, all over 2a. So I went ahead and I squared. Negative 3 squared and I got 9. Then I'm going to, the part under the radical, I'm going to simplify that. So this is 9. 4 times 2 is 8 times a half, so half of 8 is 4. So 9 minus 4 is 5, all over 4. So 2 times 2 is 4. Now the square root of 5, that is not a perfect square. We don't know what the square root of 5 is. So you have an option. You can leave it like this, or you can write it out. 3 plus the square root of 5 over 4, and 3 minus the square root of 5 over 4. But those are your two solutions. So one of them is with the positive square root of 5, and one of them is subtracting the square root of 5. Let's do example 4. Example 4, I need to move my 5 over by adding 5. So I get x squared minus 8x plus 5. Once you put it into standard form, you can put it into the quadratic formula. So negative b would be 8. B squared minus 4 times 1 times 5, all over 2 times 1. Hopefully you'll memorize this formula with as many problems as we do. I'm going to simplify the square root. So 64 minus 4 times 1 times 5 is 20. So square root of 44, all over 2. And again, you could leave it here, because the square root of 44, it's not a perfect square. Now some papers that you see might ask you to simplify the square root of 44, which the square root of 44 is 4 times 11. 4 is a perfect square. So what's the square root of 4? Is 2. So the square root of 44 is also equal to 2 times the root of 11, if that's a little extra. You can just leave it for right now, square root of 44. All right, so examples 5 and 6. All right, so number 5, I have my A, my B, and my C. So negative B plus or minus square root, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which would be 36, minus 4 times 8 times 5, 4AC, all over 2A. I'm going to simplify. So 36 minus 4 times 8 times 5. So that would be 4 times 5 is 20 times 8. Is that 160? 5 times 4 is, wait, 5 times 8 is 40. 40 times 4 is 160. All over 16. So then 160 minus 36. 10 minus 6 is 4. So negative 124, because that would be a negative. Oh, I hope that's right. Double check my math. So now this brings us to something we've talked about before, the square root of a negative number. You cannot have the square root of a negative number. Therefore, you would have to take out an I. So the square root of that would be I, the square root of 124. So then your answer would be negative 6 plus or minus I, square root of 124 all over 16. Now I'm sure 124 we can simplify and we can pull out a perfect square, but that's not the focus. The focus is, can you do the quadratic formula? So number 6, I want you to try. And you work on it. Make sure you move this 12 over. And then you're going to put it into the quadratic equation, the quadratic formula, and we will go over this in class.